right, we're back for another week.
Yes.
We're a day late today.
Yeah. Somebody was out of town.
Yeah. So I had to wait for you.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
Well, we're, what are we? We're into February now, Paul. Still no snow on the ground.
Nope. It's been cold, but it warmed up today.
Yeah, cold, but not unreasonable. You know, that I think we've gotten down in the teens, minus teens and stuff, which for January is
nothing big.
It could be easily in the 20 to 30 below range, which we haven't seen this year.
Nope.
I haven't seen anyway.
Nope. And
So-
I haven't been out ice fishing yet.
No,
I got to.
no, neither have I. For that
Because
matter.
we're into a short month, February.
Yeah, maybe some weekends ahead or some days ahead we can get out.
Yep.
So
So we were just talking. You get the
it was funny. I was in a convenience store gassing up down in Orono at Dice Arts, and we'd gone in. We'd gotten a coffee and some Jack Links there, and we had paid for it. And we're walking out, and the magazine stand was right by the door, and I see the Maine Sportsman annual Biggest Bucks in Maine issue was
Maine
out.
Sportsman or Northwood Sporting Journal?
Maine Sportsman.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, they're the ones that do the patch and everything.
They do.
The 200-pound patch club. So I went back and picked it up, and
What's number one in the state?
number one in the state was Robbie Kilcollins. We
Right.
had him.
Right from town here.
Yeah. We had mentioned him earlier in the fall.
Yeah, right after you shot it. Beautiful buck.
Yeah. 11-pointer, 261 pounds, and he shot it at 540 yards, Paul.
Jeez, I'm crow.
Yeah, that to me that had just as well been on another planet.
Yeah.
Because I'm not making that shot with the equipment I got, and even if I had the equipment, I don't think I could.
Over 500 yards.
540 yards.
Jeez, crow.
Yeah, that's quite a poke.
Well, at 261, that's a pretty big target.
Yes, yeah, but you still want to hit it, and he dropped it right there, I guess.
What was the number two?
the number two?
They have top 10, right?
Yeah. The number two, Paul, was I think 257. 257.
I'm sure it was quite tight. The top 10.
257. Yeah, down in Bridgeton.
Yeah.
A guy from Denmark shot it. He shot it in Bridgeton.
Okay.
So yeah, interesting that. So Robbie is distantly related to you, Paul, to us.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess I knew that.
yeah. So
Well, up here, everyone's kind of related, I guess.
Yeah, but it was pretty neat, it gets you to thinking, Paul. That deer probably lived his entire life hearing human activity every day.
Yeah.
Where he shot that, I know the general area that he shot it.
Definitely, because you're not getting away from...
No, there's roads all around there.
And this is an agricultural side
there's
of things.
no extensive woodlots or anything like that. So that deer, number one deer in the state, and that, like I say, that deer probably heard human activity, dogs barking, vehicles going, voices, just about every day of his life.
Yeah.
And you can, like I say, you can get it anywhere. You never know. You never know where the biggest buck might be.
Yeah.
So
Could be right in your backyard.
could be right in your backyard. It certainly could be in your backyard. You get
Yeah, I'm not far away from as crow
well,
flies,
not only that, but you get a lot of deer right here.
Yeah.
You get a lot of deer right around your house.
I think the other day my neighbor called. He's like, look out your window. There's 13 going across your lawn.
Yeah.
And then there was another 8 or 10 behind his house getting ready to come over.
Yeah.
And it just...
In fact, probably population-wise, this is probably one of the higher populations in Aroostook County right here, right
in town,
within a mile of your house.
Yep.
So
and this year, I mean, the way things are going next year.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Should be good.
Like I say, the woods. We don't have anywhere up here. I haven't seen any more than 6 inches of snow.
No.
We do have some coming. I think 3 to 5 on Thursday, and then a few storms. But But we could use a little more.
Yeah, that's still
We
not.
we could use a little more snow.
My neighbor was over here the other day, and he runs groomer and stuff,
Yeah.
grooming trails. And he's like, "Yeah, I was out grooming. It wasn't a lot of snow to drag, but
No, we went
still-
went for a ride last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, up to the Lakeview in St. Agat, and we went across a few fields. It was all rocks.
Yeah.
The lake was good, it was good traveling on the lake, but
yeah,
once you get off the lake, it was all rocks and sticks, and so we didn't go too far off the lake.
yep."
So
So a little bit about. So I just posted a video. Was it last week now?
yes,
Just talking about the legacy guns. We were talking about the old 410 that we
Yeah.
have, and it's one of those things. I just get the idea kind of randomly because a lot of people have hand-me-down guns that have been in families for a long time.
yes,
And a lot of people will comment, like sometimes they'll have like a gun or two like that they just want to take out
yeah,
just because, I mean, it's probably not worth anything money-wise,
no,
but it's worth something to them. And, it has a long history, and they just like carrying that gun every now and then just because it makes them feel good, reminds them of, and that old 410 was like, that's what, 5th generation now.
yeah.
that our kids
So
are
I'm
using.
assuming it was my grandfather's. Of course, I came across it when I was a kid. My father had it, and I don't believe he bought it. I believe it was his father's. And his father died in 1939, so I'm guessing the gun was bought in the 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 1930s.
And looking at the company that was it,
Crescent
Davis Arms,
Yeah,
looking at the company that made it, they weren't really in business, I guess, late 1800s.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed, like Crescent Arms at one point, and
Right.
then it was merged with another company, became Crescent Davis Arms. And they called them kind of like a hardware.
but really well made.
Yeah, it's like a utilitarian gun, nothing fancy,
Yeah,
but man, it's old.
yeah.
So we're looking at almost 100 years now.
And that thing is solid.
It is tight.
Oh, yeah.
It is a tight.
And
the
so
injectors still work on it. Fantastic.
I read up on it, and you're right. It was a low budget gun,
Yeah.
but very well made.
And I think the company made a lot of guns for like different department stores to put their names on.
Yeah,
But yeah, it just was and
yeah.
I think they were like $8 back
Yeah,
in the
well,
day.
back in the
I'd come
20s
across,
or
8 or
30s,
$9,
yeah.
$8 and some change for the gun.
Yeah, yeah.
And so money wise, it's not worth anything, but it's
Yeah.
worth something to us. It's
Yeah.
got a ton of history and
Yeah, I shot my first bird with that. I was probably, I wasn't 10 years old. I was probably 8 or 9 when I shot my first bird with that gun, right at the camp, right in the camp dooryard. And like we said, we had one shotgun between my brother and my father and myself. And then he had a pump 22, which I started carrying, but that's not much of a bird gun for a 10 or 12-year-old kid.
makes you a good shot.
Yeah, yeah.
It'll work on your...
And I did shoot birds with it, not many, but
Yeah.
I did shoot a few birds with it.
Do you remember the first bird you shot when you were alone?
I do.
Yeah. Was it with that 410?
No, it was, I had, and it was right across the lake. We were walking a series of old tote roads that you couldn't drive. And I remember Dad said, yeah, well, if you want to, you can walk down this side road. And he and my brother kept on down the main tote road. I went down, and I didn't go. I don't think I went maybe a few hundred yards, maybe a quarter mile. And I can still picture it. There was a little bird standing right in the middle of the trail.
Yeah.
And I shot it. And, of course, Dad could hear. But I grabbed that bird, and I turned around, and I ran all the way back to him. I was so... And there again, legal age to hunt alone was 16, and I was probably 12 or 13. I wasn't 16.
So even back then it was 16?
Yes, it was, yeah.
All right.
You had to be 10 to hunt back then, and you needed a
That's
license.
the way it was when I was a kid. 10 to hunt, 16 to hunt.
It was the same
on
way
your
when
own.
I was a kid, and you had to be 16 to hunt alone.
Yeah.
And, so I think the statute of limitations have run out on that.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's gonna
Gonna care.
going to get you.
I do. I can picture
You
it.
were under 18 anyway. It wasn't your...
Yeah. Yeah. But I had bought at that time, I had bought with my potato harvesting money, my potato picking money, I'd bought a single shot, and we still have that gun, a single shot 20 gauge from Bowyer's Hardware in Presque Isle.
All right.
And they always, you could get everything from a pound of Hamburg to a pound of nails at Bowyer's Hardware on Chapman Road or Chapman Street in Presque Isle.
I mean, even when I was a kid, it was the same thing, even with like the Rite Aids in those stores. Like the first one, the day I turned 18, I went down to Rite Aid and bought shotgun shells.
Yeah.
That was my big thing. I'm 18, I can go buy ammunition now.
Yeah.
Those stores don't sell anything like that now.
Yeah.
God. But yeah, someone had brought up, and I hear it quite a bit from different people. They're like their first kind of solo hunt, being successful by themselves, really sticks in their heads.
Oh, I ran as fast as I could
because they're so proud of being by themselves.
I picked that bird up and I ran up to the tote road my brother and father were walking on and caught up to them, and I was some proud of that. Yeah. Oh, and I can, like I say, I can still see coming around the corner. The road was pretty grown up, and there's a bird. He just standing there, close, you know. Yeah. Yeah. So that was the first one by myself.
I remember when I was going to turn 16, the year before, I was 15, had to hunt with you.
Yeah.
And you'd said that deer season, he's like, you're shooting this year because next year you're on your own.
Yeah.
You're out by yourself.
Yeah.
So, and you're not one to give someone a long time to shoot. So I had
You're
been
talking about that deer? Is that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the deal of it was, and I remember telling you, I was going to hold off because I was there for the week and you were there for the first few days, and you had to leave like
at a basketball tournament
Wednesday or Thursday for a basketball tournament. So I said, don't ask me any questions when we see illegal deer, you know, be shooting, be pulling the trigger. And you did. Yeah. And the rest is history.
Yeah. And I think about that looking back. I'm like, that doesn't give someone much time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time in his book's different when there's an animal standing there in front of you.
Yeah. And I
held moose hunt this year.
What's that?
Said hence the moose hunt this year.
Yeah, exactly.
No sooner did you say that looks like a shooter, and it's bang, 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 bang.
He who hesitates is lost. So I don't, it might be the difference between getting the animal and I don't dilly dally when it comes to that.
No, you don't. You'll push your kids right out of the way to.
Well, I didn't on that one. That was no. And I could have shot. It was walking right towards us.
Yeah, and it was close.
About
the length of this room away, for crying out loud. Right on top of it.
Yeah.
So back to Robbie's deer. It brings up a topic of, and it's something I'm big on, and we were talking about it a while ago. Rob. So there's always some luck involved, especially a big deer like that, right? 261 pounds. They're not around.
Well, it's the biggest in the state,
right? So yeah. So it's not like, you can predict that I'm going to go out this year and shoot the biggest deer in the state. But shooting a deer at 500 plus yards, that doesn't happen by accident.
No.
And to consistently do it.
He mentions that in the article there. They did an article about him, and he mentions that he has an 800-yard range set up. Yeah. And they practice a lot. And,
so that's where so I'm big on intentionality.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, and it applies to every aspect in life.
It does.
If you want to be better, get better at something, you don't have to be the best at it, but if you want to improve,
right,
and go in the right direction, it doesn't happen by accident.
No.
And it takes intentionality. One of the things that I refer to is what they call the law of intentionality. And I'm kind of stealing that from John Maxwell. I like a lot of his books. He writes like leadership books, personal growth books and stuff like that. And, one of his underlying themes is you have to be intentional.
Yes.
It doesn't happen by accident.
In everything in life, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get frustrated in life because they feel like as they get older, that if they're not improving automatically, it can be frustrating.
Mm.
Like until you come to the realization that it's going to have to take an intentional action every day.
Yeah.
To get better at something. So you look at Robbie's deer, like I couldn't make a 500 plus yard shot with
I
my
couldn't
gun.
do that. I don't have the equipment to do that, and even if I did, I don't know if I have the skill to do it, Paul.
Yeah.
To hold steady.
But you could.
Yeah, if you practice.
You could.
Yeah, and I've always been quite open about that, and he mentions that there again, that I do not shoot enough.
No.
He mentioned that a lot of people will just shoot, one time before they go out just to make sure their gun's on.
They do some quality assurance
and
make sure their gun's on.
That's not how you become a good shot.
No. That's not how you become proficient at anything.
No, that's for sure.
All the people that are really good, at anything, it wasn't by accident.
No.
So then you bring up another good point, like knowing, like you said, like I'm not the greatest shot. Well, you kind of have to improve on something. You got to be honest with yourself.
Oh yeah.
You got to have humility.
Yeah.
And you got to know yourself.
Yeah.
To be
know
able
your
to
limitations
improve.
and
and be honest about what your weaknesses is. We're not all good at everything.
Right.
And you got to be honest. Like this is where I struggle.
Mm.
And this is where I need improvement. And how do I improve upon that? And again, it applies to deer hunting, even in your everyday life.
Yeah. I was watching a YouTube channel there, and they had a Vince Lombardi quote, and he had said, he was a famous, some of the old timers, they would know Vince Lombardi, the name real well, but a lot of the younger people wouldn't. He was a football coach for the Green Bay Packers, and he said that the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
success always comes after work.
So, and there's two parts to that I think about. So one is persistence.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people will say about persistence is persistence will get you what you want.
Yeah.
But consistency will help you keep it.
Yeah.
So persistence, basically, you never give up.
Right.
And sometimes it's doing things that are really hard that maybe other people are like, say you can't do.
Yeah.
Or because you'll get a lot of background noise with stuff. And you got to be able to tune other people out when you want to do something that's hard. That's going to take persistence. So, and you think of it with finances and stuff like that, you can be persistent and get to that point, get to where if you're financially successful or deer hunting, shooting some deer, but consistency plays a role after that in maintaining that same level of success or whatever it is that you're keeps it from losing it.
Yeah. Well, and there again, Robbie, he's not only a really good shot. All the Kill Collinses, his dad, Robert, is, Bob, but they are persistent. They hunt a lot.
Oh, yeah.
He
goes out.
Hunt.
And I think, I explained the story because I think Keith was here with us. And
Keith was
quite close with them.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, I'll have to look at the podcast again, but I recall the story he went to one spot.
It's in the story.
Somebody was there.
Yeah.
And he didn't get ticked and loses. And Robbie's actually a pretty laid back. When you talk to him, he was joking around. He was like, because when I asked him permission to use the photo back a few months ago, he was like, "Yeah, put a photo up the deer. You can say it's your deer if you want." I'm like, geez,
so in the story, he mentions that, Paul, he got to his A spot, the spot he wanted to hunt. And there was somebody there, and he said he had a really good conversation with the guy. He says, I even offered him a few pointers on where I'd seen deer there before, and he said, so I moved on. He said, I gave him that spot, and I moved on to the, and in the article it mentioned that karma, because he was a nice guy, and it worked out for him.
It's the right attitude.
Yes.
Right? So that kind of brings us into our other thing of intentionality. It's how you manage bad experiences.
Yeah.
Right. So we can look at failure. If someone fails at something, that's a bad experience. And it's kind of your approach to how do you handle that? You can have a complete breakdown and lose your crap over it. So in Robbie's instance, you know, you could be really ticked.
Yeah.
Like, I was going hunting here. This was my...
Could have packed it up and went home.
This was my plan A.
Yeah.
And then throw in the towel and just have a terrible attitude about it.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
Yeah.
And it ended up
he was rewarded for it. Yeah.
Number one deer in the state.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, in hunting and life in general, it can boil down to how well do you play a poor hand?
Yeah.
You get dealt maybe not the best hand.
Yeah.
In that situation. And you made the best of it.
Yeah. So one of the writers for the Maine Sportsman, they called him up and and he talks about all that stuff, Paul, in the article there. Yeah.
I'll look at it.
They went in and I assume over the phone probably they talked to him, and Robbie goes into detail about the...
Well, good. Yeah. Good for him. I mean,
good for Robbie for sure.
I mean, that was kind of serendipitous. I had no idea you were going to bring over the Maine Sportsman today.
I just opened that up. That must have just come out.
Well, I was thinking the other day, I'm like, because I want to talk about like the top 10 bucks in the state, or at least to know which one's number one. And Robbie his buck was sitting, I'm like, that's got to be top 10.
Yeah.
261.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, he's going to be there somewhere. Whether it was number one or not, I wouldn't have bet money on it. But that was a hog of a deer because it had a huge rack too.
It did. It had a really nice. That deer had everything.
A lot of times you see like someone will shoot one like 280 pounds.
Yeah.
And they've got kind of this prototypical 8-point rack that's
there's a
really
lot in
impressive.
there, Paul, that are top 10 that you're right, that the racks are nothing special on them. But there's another little story too. You know, I'd run into a guy from Portage a couple of years ago, Bernie Maples. I don't know if he was the guy I delivered to up in Portage. Super nice guy. Bernie's a wicked nice guy, and for whatever reason, and I can't remember why he was out into this country, but he'd mentioned an area a long way from here in western Maine, southwest of here, that he had seen, and I'm assuming he may have been trapping out there, but that may be right or wrong. But he had seen a lot of big buck sign, and he told me about it. And it was funny, I was going through the list, and I kept seeing this township come up and some surrounding townships come up on a number of big bucks. And it was where he had told me to go.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he knew something.
He knew something.
Yeah.
And he had actually, I ran into him again a year later, maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago. And he said the same, we got talking about it again. And he told me the same thing. He said, man. And he said, you know, there are some, he mentioned the sporting camps in the area and stuff. He said it probably gets hunted a little bit or whatever from this sporting camp. But he'd made a point of letting me know about that would be a place to try.
Yeah. And that's where, so another thing I wanted to touch on, and we've talked about a little bit, is curiosity.
Yeah.
Is you want to learn.
Yeah.
You're always wondering, like, when you're deer hunting, like and at least for me, what's over there? What's down? Yeah. And I'm always looking, for some reason, if I'm looking at a map, I like to find places that I'm like, what's the hardest, craziest, most difficult place to get into that maybe someone won't put the work in to go.
Right.
And I'm like, I want to go there. Yeah. And maybe there's nothing there, but you're curious to find.
Well, you get into one of those spots last year, Paul, that you had to, it was a bit of a drive and then it was a bit of a walk to get into. And you were into the deer in there.
And a lot of times it doesn't pan out. We've done it fishing a lot. Yeah. You know, it's great Maine's covered. There's water everywhere. Yeah. And you can look at a map and be like, well, there's no road near this stream or this little pond. And usually this is in June, and it can be hot. The black flies are terrible.
Yeah.
And you're bushwhacking
in waders
with waders and fly fishing gear.
Yeah.
And I can think of a lot of trips where I was like, holy crap, that was a lot of work for some 4-inch brook trout.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you
like
learn
I say,
something.
It's always fun to,
And that's where this has been kind of a theme lately, but where failure's your friend.
Yeah.
You learn something from it. You have a good attitude about how you handle that experience.
Yeah. Sometimes you say, I'm not going back there again.
Yeah. But I don't anyway.
Yeah.
I never say I'm not doing that ever again.
Right.
That was a waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's pretty miserable and you're.
Yeah. No, I'd do it again. I'd do the same thing. I just may not go to that spot. You know, that I may say I probably won't, but you're right. You should never say never, but I probably won't go back to that spot. That doesn't mean I won't in June put on the waders and the fly dope and bushwhack to some other place. And
that brings up another thing that I was thinking about this morning is you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Yeah. You're putting yourself in situations where it feels either physically uncomfortable or emotionally uncomfortable. You're just like, boys, this isn't me. And you're really stepping outside your box and you start to discover things that you wouldn't discover.
Yeah.
It's like that deer tracking.
Yeah.
You're going to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
I think because I like it so much, I have an easier time being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, discomfort's really mental. I was watching a documentary, not change the subject really, but on the Inuit. And I got to look it up, the physiological things that go on with them, but they are really cold tolerant. And a lot of it has to be repeated exposure. But also there's a mental component to it to where they just get kind of used to it. And it's almost a mind over matter thing. And it actually, obviously your mind and body are connected and it can affect how you think, can present itself physiologically. So
you can talk yourself into dying if you want to.
And you'll see people, I mean, I think one thing that they'd mentioned in this documentary was, and it's something I want to research more. Just if you're stressed, if you're in a cold environment and you get stressed and anxious about it, it'll actually make that feeling of cold and discomfort even worse. Yeah. If you're calm, and you'll see people that do the ice water baths and stuff like that, they can get themselves mentally. Yeah.
They tell them to control their breathing and stuff because you're going to want to, and if pant and stuff. And
if you get in it and you're panicking, you're like, this is uncomfortable and you're focusing on the discomfort,
right?
It's exponentially worse.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can kind of get in a zone, to where, and I think runners do it, like these ultra marathon runners, because they talk about how miserable they feel when they do it. But I was thinking, it was last night, I was watching a documentary on the Inuit. I just remember thinking, man, they are tough because they're out like
pretty harsh environment,
super sub-zero, wind blowing, gloves are off.
Yeah.
Like they're cutting stuff and like processing seals and stuff. And I'm thinking, boys, they're just like oblivious to it.
It's their life.
And I got kind of thinking when I was watching it, because somehow you always relate everything to deer hunting. But I was like, I'm pretty intolerant of cold. I've got Raynaud's, right? And my fingers will get cold and stuff like that. And this is where it becomes obvious that it's oftentimes mind over matter. When I'm deer hunting, I don't get cold. Yeah. And it's not really because I'm moving. I mean, there's been days where we've been, like there was one day, the high was 9 degrees, 40 mile an hour winds. And I don't dress particularly heavy when I'm out traveling through the woods. And didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, and wool is good, but I'll tell you what, the wind will blow through wool.
No, and all I'm wearing for gloves is a thin pair of wool gloves.
And it will blow through the wool.
It wasn't like I was wearing a heavy leather skiing glove or snowmobiling glove.
Well, that's one of the things, Paul, that I get as I've gotten older, I don't tolerate the cold as well as I used to. And I hear that's a common theme from older people.
Yeah.
They just don't tolerate it the way they used to, and you have to make allowances for it. Either wear better clothing or the right stuff, or move more.
Yeah.
So
you get soft in your old age.
You do. You don't see a lot of 70-year-olds sitting out there all day long,
No. Or tracking deer.
Or tracking deer. Yeah.
It definitely.
One of the really, and I won't mention names, one of the really, really good deer trackers and still in really good shape. But he mentioned this year, he said, going every day is done.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said now it's
pick and choose
I got to take a day off.
Yeah.
If I go hard one day, he said, I got to take the next day off. So.
And that's knowing knowing who you are. And because, let's face it, if that person goes every day just to force themselves, then
it's miserable and it's not fun.
Then the days that it's good, they don't have that extra oomph to do it.
Right.
And even I remember Larry Benoit talking about just him selecting a deer track. Super selective as far as, because you're not going to go on a 12-mile loop through 10 inches of snow and then get up and do it again. And then again and again.
Yeah.
You're going to destroy your deer season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing how, that comes down to working out and stuff like that. And if you get injured,
intentionality again.
You don't just stop working out because it's a great excuse.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I hurt my back. All right. Oh, I got a knee that's tweaked. It doesn't mean you stop working out.
Yeah.
Because then you sit on the couch and everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
You work around the issue.
Yeah, you do.
And, my back's bugging me. I guess I won't be doing this, or this, but I can do this. I can do.
Yeah. I won't say everyone, but there's no way you're going to get to your mid-60s and be able to go out and track a deer unless you're doing something in the off season, unless you've got some sort of workout program or, you might get away with it. And I don't want to say everyone. There might be somebody out there that just, is in good shape but generally speaking, I think that as you get older, you have to be more intentional about staying in shape, or you're not going to be able to do.
Stretching's a big one.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, I'll be the first to admit, and my wife's an occupational therapist, and she's on me about this all the time because I'll probably pay for it someday.
Yeah,
learn the hard way, but she's like, you're on the go. She's like, you won't slow down enough to, like, when I get up to go for a run, I go for a run. I don't do a warm up.
Yeah.
And I don't cool down. Yeah. And she gets on me about that, and it's bad. And it becomes more apparent the older you get, things get tight and stretching becomes really important.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible at that.
Yeah, and I am.
And you can
too,
injure
Paul.
yourself.
I do the same thing. If I work out, I go right into the workout.
Yeah.
I go and I do. I don't do a lot of stretching, which I should.
Yeah,
so
it's important.
And warming up. Yeah.
And that's something that again takes and I think a lot of people are the same way. They want to get into it, do it, and then get on with the next thing that they got going on that day.
Right.
So they get their workout in, and to take 10 or 15 minutes to slow down and warm up and stretch and then get into your workout and then cool down appropriately. Yeah. It's like, who has time for that? I got other stuff I gotta do.
You're trying to get it all done.
And I gotta be better at it. And usually I work out alone, but every now and then she'll come down and our workouts will overlap. And she's standing right over me like a drill sergeant. You're not, you need to cool down.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I will. I'm going to go upstairs and cool down.
Yeah.
I don't. No. Yeah, that was great. I'm glad you brought, because I had some other examples I was going to use for,
Yeah.
just being intentional. And like I said, it's big in anything in life, but deer hunting, like people that are really good or that are, shoot deer every year, it doesn't happen by accident.
No.
And Robbie's story is a perfect example. Most people that were presented with that deer probably wouldn't have shot it.
Yeah.
At 500 plus
I couldn't have
yards.
shot at that distance.
No.
And it was on it was on private land, but it was open access.
Yeah.
Anybody could hunt it.
Yeah.
That's another thing, right in a area with lots of people and lots of hunters.
Yeah.
Wasn't a remote location, anybody could have gone out in that field on that.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, that's like most areas in Maine.
yeah.
There are a lot of places to hunt, in northern Maine. But the deal is in northern Maine is finding areas that have deer.
Right.
It can be
Yeah.
shot in the dark. Like I just think of a new person coming to northern Maine to hunt. Man, such a tough.
Yeah.
Tough
You
thing
would
to do.
want to, if you're throwing a dart at a map, that's not any way to,
Man,
you'd want to know somebody and have some local information.
collect some intel from people.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's why on one of our things, I just talked like the value of a guide
Yeah.
in places like this.
Yeah.
If you've never been to an area like this, like,
Right.
yeah, that's when it would become valuable.
Yeah.
To get someone to just like, okay, go here, do this, go to this area, try this. And it kind of gives you a starting point.
Yeah.
And you can build from that. So what else you got? Anything?
No, that was about all, Paul. Like I say, I wanted to get that in there. The biggest bucks in Maine, is.
Have you eaten any of your deer?
I've eaten it, yeah, quite. In fact, we had moose today. Narda made a casserole with a moose burger, which was really good. But I've had deer steak.
We had my neighbor was over the other day for supper, and we made a lasagna.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
And I'd used some of Keith's deer,
Yeah.
and he was like, he liked it, and I was like, yeah, that deer's right from behind your house, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like,
literally.
no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally right
Right
behind
smack
his house.
dab behind his house.
Yeah.
It was good. Got that. Yeah, that stuff is awesome.
Yeah. No intentionality, Paul. Like you said, you gotta apply that everywhere in life. I don't care whether it's your health, your finances, your relationships. You need to, your hobbies.
No.
Nothing happens by accident, and certainly not consistently. Like you say, if you're going to be consistent at something, it's like I say, it's everything. You don't want to get to be 65 and start thinking about retirement and saving money at 65. You've got to be intentional from the start at a young age, and you don't want to get to be 65 and be in poor health, and that takes being intentional along the way in your life.
Once you're 65 or 70 and you're not healthy,
it's hard to catch up.
It's usually stuff that's been done over the long term.
Yeah.
That
hard to catch up at that point.
When you're younger, you can nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
And mitigate that before you get to a point to where there's no turning back.
Yeah.
Pancreas is gone, or liver's gone, or
and all those
knees are gone.
And we watch a lot of shows, Paul, and podcasts, and all those the deer hunters we listen to, the good deer hunters, they're very intentional on it. They a lot of them, a lot more than myself, they take the shooting serious, and and you have to be if you want to be consistent.
And it's also, you talk about consistency. It's also a lot of deer hunting for me. It's almost like a running experiment. So you go out you do something, you stay persistent, you just keep doing it, and you kind of find, oh, I was successful. Okay, what happened here? And then you want repeatability. So you're like, okay, so I did this, and it's always this constant, like, you get an idea, maybe it's not a complete idea, and it's all right to have an idea about something and not fully, have a full idea of what it is that you want to do or how you want to approach it. But there's always like this little experimental aspect where I want to try this, and then, oh, it worked. And then we fine tune that, and you kind of, you hone in on different things, and you consistently do that. You get better and better and better.
Right.
And so that's where the persistence and consistency kind of, they go hand in hand. You got to nose to the grind, but at the same time, think about things, pivot when you need to pivot.
Right.
If you're outside doing the same thing over and over and over and it's not working.
Right.
What can we try different? What can we, how can we change this up? And then, just keep at it, keep tweaking things, and you get better. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and somebody had mentioned about, the law of probability and stuff. The longer you do something, the more your odds go up, which is right to a certain extent. But he used the situation or the example of somebody that's hunted for years and years, and they haven't shot a deer, and he says, well, you're smoking hot. And I'm thinking, no, they're not smoking. They're doing something wrong.
Yeah, because I've read a lot of books about some people say the law of probability is non-existent. Yeah. Like it's because of that. Like if you're doing something just completely.
If you haven't been successful by now, you have given yourself plenty of opportunities to be successful. You've put in the time. So you're probably, Robbie made that opportunity because he had a skill set that allowed him to shoot.
That's right.
540 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people couldn't do that.
He was prepared.
And
that's, what do they say? That's good fortune or whatever comes where preparation meets opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
yeah,
Robbie was prepared for a scenario,
and then he had an opportunity,
and he was able to capitalize on that opportunity.
Yeah,
I'd probably say if that was me, I wouldn't be in the Maine Sportsman with the biggest buck in the state because I probably wouldn't have shot.
Well, it was so far in the yard. He really didn't know how big the deer. Well, you wouldn't at 540 yards until he get up to the deer and said, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah. Even that big buck that I shot 2 years ago, but probably it's me too because I don't look that closely. I'm like, I see it's a
mature buck,
and I move on. Yeah, I'm like, I focus on shooting the deer. But even the one I looked at that deer a lot 2 years ago, and it never really registered with me,
right?
Because it was a long ways away.
Yeah,
and I just remember I saw points, and I just like it's a nice buck.
Yeah.
Now I got to figure out how I'm going to harvest this buck.
Yeah.
And I looked at that deer a lot. And not once did I ever think, oh my God, this is a big buck. It's going to be.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't at that distance.
No. But in hindsight, I'm like, I saw the rack with the naked eye.
Yeah.
300 yards. So that it shined off the light. And that's how I saw the deer to begin with.
Yeah.
But never really.
Yeah.
So back to Robbie's, there was no ground shrinkage there.
No,
he's walking up
that's like I say, in every aspect, that was truly a big deer.
Yeah. So I guess we could say the intentionality is a deer hunter's secret weapon.
Yeah. It's I'll give it. It's life's secret weapon.
It is. Yeah.
It's life. Nothing happens, Paul, like we say consistently without being intentional.
If you want to get healthier.
You want to
run further.
Yep.
You want to lift more.
Apply it to everything in relationships and everything else.
You want to be smarter.
In your attitude. And Yeah. Takes being intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't leave things to their own accord.
Yeah. What do they say? Failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
I think that's enough.
Yeah, that's probably good. I'm glad I came across the article there.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about it. Like, I'm like, I got to see when they're going to have
I have a hard time finding that publication up here. I look for it, Paul, and I cannot find the Maine Sportsman up here.
I wonder why.
And like I say, it was funny because I was headed out of the store down in Orono and saw that on a rack, and I turned right around and went right back and paid for it.
Did you see any? You were down in Massachusetts. See any deer down there?
We did, right behind Brittany's house there, walking through the woods. Yeah.
Any with antlers still?
I didn't see any antlers on it. They're right during the day, right behind her house. Yeah. And we almost hit a buck. We going back to her house one night. Just a small buck, yep.
So it had antlers.
Yeah. This one did, a small, it looked like a yearling, walked across the road in front of us.
Huh.
She slammed on the brakes, and I've always told her the woods down there come right up to the edge of the road.
They do.
And they're windy, and people drive fairly quickly down there. And I'm thinking, man, what an opportunity. There's deer everywhere. What an opportunity to hit deer and stuff. That I'm always telling her that, boy, be careful, Brett. You never know when a deer, and I've told her that, and that deer come right out, and she slammed on the brakes there. That
We're like that with, well, it used to be a lot worse, but with moose up here.
Yeah.
When I was younger, going up through the Fish River Chain Lakes, going up 161, that was like, at nighttime, that was almost a death sentence.
Yeah, between...
You were guaranteed to see a dozen moose.
Between Madawaska Lake and Cross Lake there on 161, that was you. Yeah, I did that route every day for years and years coming down through there. And there was a lot of moose along the edge, and a lot got hit.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Some bad situations.
They were everywhere. I can remember if I was going up that way, I would always make sure my travels was going to be between sunrise and sunset.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to be running that road at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night.
No.
Because a lot of the times the problem is you're driving down the road, you can see pretty good. You can see a moose.
Yeah, it's not you. It's when the other car comes towards you.
You hit another vehicle coming.
Yeah, exactly. Then you can't
headlights.
see.
And you had some close calls.
I did.
You just see the legs of a moose go across in front of someone's headlights.
Yeah. Boy, that was so close. That guy's windshield ended up in the bed of my pickup. Landed right on his car. I was beside him. Stepped out of my lane into his lane, like feet before I get. It landed right on top of his car, and they both. She was unconscious, but I think it was more the airbag that.
That'll knock you for a loop.
So I got to go back to this car, crushed in, and see if everybody is all right. And he was bleeding bad from the hand, where the windshield came down on his hand, and his wife was unconscious. And he wanted me to go get her out, and I said, I'm not gonna. And then I had a hard time getting a vehicle to stop to make a call. It was kind of pre-cell phone deal.
This was a long time ago.
Yeah, right near the Brown Road in Caribou there on 161.
Yeah.
Woodland. So.
Yeah, you don't handle blood and gore that well, do you, from a person?
I had to that night. Yeah, he was bleeding pretty bad from the hand, and I got him out. He wanted to go around. We went around to his wife's door, and we got the door open, and he said, "Well, get her out." I said, No, I'm not going to move her. I'm not going to.
Yeah. She was fine though.
She was fine. Yeah, I assume she had a broken tooth. I assume when the airbag deployed that it knocked her out.
Like getting socked by Mike Tyson or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Knock you for a loop.
But they both were all right. Car was demolished.
Yes, yeah. Oh, big animal.
Yeah, and like I say, I was so close, Paul. They were headed north, and I was headed south. And all of a sudden, when I get right to them, I just see something go across the front of their lights. And the minute I saw it, it landed on top of their vehicle, and so that all the shards of glass ended up, and I had to sweep out the bed of my truck the next day. That's how close I was to them when the moose landed on the vehicle. So I'd had a number of close calls, but that was the closest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No.
But never hit one. In all the years that I traveled up and down, I've never hit a.
We'll keep it that way.
I hope to.
Yep.
So.
Alrighty. I guess that's it.
Yep.
we'll move on to this.
Move on to February,
That's right.
Paul. Maybe
Yeah.
have some ice fishing to
Yeah.
talk about.
We'll do some soon.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. I guess till next time, get outside.
It's good for the soul.
See ya.